Alright everybody, and welcome back to Last Oasis. So in today's video it's going to be a tips and trick video for new players or people trying to figure out how to get as many fragments as they can before they leave the starter world. And this is just a little highlight video of different ways I've collected fragments, along with a kind of little hint towards the middle of the episode as to a way you can get quite a bit of fragments, especially in the starter world. So right now you just saw us kind of go ahead and loot some walker remains. Now that is one of the forms that you can go ahead and collect fragments, and for anybody who doesn't know, the forms are walker remains, you have the Rupu, which we just killed right there. You can go ahead and loot them, and from time to time the bigger ones will have fragments along with the smaller ones, and then obviously difficulty will vary the amount of fragments you get from them. And then there are also you could probably still call them walker remains, but they're kind of like little fallen off pieces more so than what you just saw us raid or loot. And then in the starter world there is a big walker remain right in the center, and we'll get more into that once we get there. So for right now, this right here we're coming up to, it's another one of the little remains. Actually it's both of them. You don't see me, if I'm not mistaken, loot the first kind, which is the one we're running past on our left hand side, and this one that will spawn randomly in the world, and that little bag like you've seen will give you fragments. Now right next to that you can also see that little V shape that we ran past. There's normally a barrel that hides inside that barrel might also contain fragments at the same time. So again, that's something you just want to keep your eye out for. And this video is more geared towards people who are trying to not avoid PvP, but try to get themselves to the best possible place they can get before they go venture wherever they're going to venture. Now obviously this is not me telling you don't PvP, it's a PvP game. Go have fun, go raid, and enjoy your time playing the game. To each their own. Now, but for me, I was more focused in the original world, or the starter Oasis, in getting fragments, because I noticed that there were different kinds, and I assumed that the different kinds you would be able to get in the harder realms. So I figured, hey, what the fuck, let's get some of the fragment learning out of the way before we ventured forth. And yeah, so finding all that and getting as many fragments as I did before I left, this is kind of just what came out of it. And again, this is only a couple clips of different things to loot that I've found, and I'm just going to show you guys real quick. Again, it's not all of them. I'll be doing another tips and trick video for everything and how to loot all of them once you get into the bigger areas. But for the starter world, this is my best version of it. And now again, you can see us fast forward here real quick, playing with my water. This clips came from one of my episodes in a Let's Play. If you're interested in watching that, you can go ahead and go to the channel. I'll put a link in the description down below to the other playthrough. Probably just add a link to the whole Let's Play itself. But this is another one of those walker remains. Now the walker remains spawn in the world randomly, as do all of the remains, we'll call them, and the Rupu huts. Once you destroy them, or you've beaten them and you've gotten everything you can, the huts have a tendency to break apart and then they'll rebuild. Some of the Rupu huts will vanish and then they'll respawn other places, and the walker remains slash other little items you can grab, they will kind of disappear and then come back. Certain ones of the barrels in the little bag you saw earlier, those don't disappear. The bags and barrels will just respawn after so much time. But the reason I'm showing that walker thing again is just because you can see it did build itself into the wall. So little bit difference and variation on what you're going to see. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is the bigger walker remain that you can find in the world. And this is a little run through that me and some guys found on the starter world, and kind of just going to give you guys a little hint on how to get a bunch of fragments pretty easily. You do want to be a sort of a higher level to do one part of this, which is coming up next. There's a Rupu that you got to be decent enough in the fighting that you feel confident that you're not going to get killed. You obviously can see there's 3 guys right there. I do play Nomad, so this was kind of just some people I ended up finding when I went to this, and they kind of already had looted it, so they knew where everything was, and they just kind of real quick showed me where everything was. So one of the few times you'll see me actually play with people, at least for the time being. Now, this is the Rupu I was talking about. When you kill this guy, you have a tendency to get anywhere from 8 to 11 fragments. Now, starting off, that's pretty good, and you're not going to get much better besides for getting some of the little sacks and looting some of those little chests that you can find on those walker remains. And you can see us go ahead and fight him here. One of the guys almost die, you know. Gets pretty interesting and fun. He does drop some interesting loot. The staff you see the guy playing with right now, the one off to my left hand side, is called a Traveler Staff. He does drop it, along with quite a few other things around this route, I'll call it, does drop it too. So I'll stop talking for a second and we'll go ahead and get to the next part of this and just continue to show you guys this little run through. And go ahead and feel free to kind of pause the video at any point in time, especially throughout this bit of it, to kind of refresh yourself with where everything is. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 8 to 10 things that you can possibly get fragments off of from this walker. So, you know, just watch, take notes if you need to, or just obviously have the video playing in the background and go ahead and play Oasis if you want to. I'm sure on most of the maps, though, at some point in time people are going to find this stuff out, but I'm just kind of making a little tips and trick video of it now so people who don't know can go ahead and hop on. And again, this is just another little chest. This will spawn here, or one of those loot chests that you can find on the walker remains, just like that. So you can see we get some of the little fragments there, and we warp right through those ropes. And you just run up. You got a little barrel up here. Then it gets a little interesting. You find some skeletons. Now, the skeletons you're about to see right now, these are not the only one in the game. Outside of this little area that you see us running around, and this is pretty much the top peak, if you will, of the walker remains, you can find little, I want to call them like the bird's nest almost, like on the old-fashioned style ships or a pirate ship. The crow's nest, there we go. You'll find remains of dead humans, and then also the satchel or some kind of loot item, and there might be fragments in it. Again, fragments are not guaranteed the whole way through, but you know, it's kind of luck of the draw. And the really cool thing about this run through is all this stuff respawns within 2 minutes. So by the time you're done running this route that I'm showing you right now live on camera, all of the items will be respawned, minus the Rupu, every time you run this route. Now granted, the way you can tell that somebody else is there with you, if you run this route and you kill the Rupu, and then you run the route again and you're missing certain items, you know someone's there. But This is a real quick and easy way to go ahead and collect roughly about 20 to 30 fragments, depending upon how lucky you are and how many fragments you can actually get at any given time. And you just kind of got to make the most use out of everything you get. As you can see, we just got a traveler staff, and nice little weapon to have, along with the ability that you can store weapons inside your walkers and venture to new worlds. The loot box, and then probably the most hidden item in this little runaround is this one right here. Down at the front end of this walker hangs the mysterious little bag. Now, again, normally running through this, you probably wouldn't see this, so this is why this is a tip and tricks video to show you all where some stuff is. And you can see now that we've gained quite a few fragments throughout this, and there's one more place we can get. And we get sidetracked talking real quick. I almost got shot coming up here because the people didn't realize that I was just kind of a nomad running around and wasn't really trying to cause nobody no problems. Obviously, if we got attacked, we would have dealt with it, but it would have been what it is. So we hop down here, and this is the last little bit of loot you can get here. And by the time you're at this and you grab this guy, everything is respawned. Now, I do recommend for anybody who is playing solo and even if you're not playing solo, to be honest with you, just go ahead and store those fragments inside your walker. Now, and I think, and I might be wrong about this because I'm not sure, because I ended up having the Hingy walker and using that to get through this area because I thought I had transferred worlds and I really ended up didn't. So whatever. But you can store those in the cargo hold of your ship. Now, the thing about the starter world is, or the starter area, since there's multiple, you can store stuff in your cargo hold, and the cargo hold cannot get broke by anything that you can build inside the starter area. You can learn what you need to break the stuff, but you can't actually break it, at least in the starter world. So, and then there are other things that can break it once you get out. Besides the items you can craft, there's a giant crab and a couple other different mobs throughout the game that can break your ship, but you just kind of got to play around, see what happens, and you might lose some stuff from time to time. Just what happens with a game like this, but it is what it is. Alright, so getting ready to get away from these guys real quick. It was a nice little run around we did. I ended up running around this quite a few more times, and you can see us now fighting with that traveler staff. And then we just kind of run back up one more of those little walker skeletons, and I know this is probably the third time now. This is the third time I've shown this same style. Now, these spawn so sporadically through the world, and there's so many of them that it's almost kind of silly to go through the starting area and not take advantage of this. It's so easy to do, and yes, you might get into the point where you have to fight some people, but obviously if you PvP well enough, you might end up getting their fragments, and so on and so forth. A lot of people in the starting area probably won't PvP you anymore since the game is out. Has been out now for a while. Most people are just trying to get started and move out to the bigger areas. Now, the thing I will warn anybody, and you can see that this was 2 walker remains that spawned side by side. The thing I will warn people is, the minute you get out of the starting area, the whole game changes. There's a lot of stuff that's different, and don't think that because you have a decent sized walker or you have a lot of stuff, especially because you're not. The reality of this game is it's PvP, and people are going to take advantage of that to pretty much every degree until you start seeing the big clans form and people start to develop territories. And even once you get people to develop territories, there's going to be territories that are going to be clan based, that shun other people and don't want to be courteous and kind to people. And again, that statement right there, you know, it's a PvP game. Not everybody's going to be happy with everything at the end of the day, but just remind yourself this is PvP, and at any point you are liable to get raided or ganked. For anybody that plays League of Legends out there, a little terminology for you. But yeah, and you can see me take a different route to try to get this loot real quick. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, this did end up working, but I ended up getting hurt anyway from this. Oh no, I did. Oh, I did. But yeah, so alright guys, that's kind of my tips and tricks video for anybody in the starter world. That's kind of the quick little explanation and guide to how to get fragments, get a decent amount to get yourself set up for the next area. Now I'll go ahead and sign off. If you did like the video, go ahead and check out the rest of the videos from Oasis, and there'll be more to come. So I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. If you're by yourself, you're going to be safe because you're